All right, guys. Hey, thanks for joining me today. So, just a journey through where we were on fertility management and how has it worked to cheapen, to use less product, to reduce input costs, but also make the soil less dependent on them inputs to grow a good crop. And so I no longer care about a really pretty soil sample is irrelevant to me. There's so many fallacies with the modern farm template that we got some videos coming question all that stuff. And soil analysis is one of them. So we used to be very conventional. When I was a little kid, Dad used to have to come get me from the field because he's like, it's late enough. You got to get up in the morning. You're not going to be out here all night. But yeah, I couldn't get to the field fast enough to do tillage. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Loved doing the moldboard plow in the fall, especially behind the manure tankers. If we spread the manure, or we had a big offset disc that behind the manure tankers, you used the offset disc to kind of smooth it up. And but yeah, behind silage, doing the moldboard plow, watching it just roll. Oh, loved it. Loved it. So what we used to do is a broadcast spreader and half your nitrogen sulfur, all your P and K ahead of the planter, come back in season with some sulfur nitrogen. If you tried to be cheap on either sulfur application, you would see sulfur striping. All we wanted to do was fix a little erosion, and that opened up this whole book of worms of cover cropping, no-till, strip-till, soil health, everything. So at the same time that we're trying to learn no-till and cover cropping, we also had a bunch of trials going on in the farm between no-till, conventional till, strip-till, all being different fertilizer rates. On the soybean side, what we found was the best cash flow every year was no-till beans with no applied fertilizer. The soybeans gave zero crop response to P and K being blown on them. We tried sulfur responses, AMS on soybeans, and that was a hit and miss. One field would be 10 bushels, and the other fields would be 0, and so we had just the only true data we had from top dressing beans with AMS is that if you got money laying around, give it a try. Never saw a consistent enough response to really make a go of it. So that's the soybean side. On the corn side, there was a lot of cool things that showed up that we were not expecting. So the corn side, we expected to have a great crop by cutting our P and K in half and putting it in the root zone versus broadcasting, because we had more pounds in the root zone by running a half rate banded than a full rate broadcast. That's basic math, not science. That's easy to do. And so that we expected. What we did not expect was that the strip till machine itself going through our soil would make a tremendously more even crop stand. A lot of these little yellow dip spots went away. And the whole overall field averages just got more consistent. And we're still trend lining up on our yield. You look at the last 15 years, we're still trend lining up very well. The other thing we did not notice or was not expecting is that by banning the sulfur pre-plant with strip till, we no longer needed a second pass of sulfur. So we took that sulfur out and just moved them couple dollars over to the urea, or kept the same amount of urea and just totally took the sulfur out, depending on the field, depending on the year. And so it saved a little there. And then the third thing we did not expect was that the nitrogen would respond to the banding. So the nitrogen responded to the banding. So your conventional till broadcast, you had this type of crop response. You had a lot of early firing. You could see the plant firing in the fall. You had some tip back on the ears. And using the exact same amount of urea, come into the fall, you had less tip back and the plant was more green. You had a lot less firing. So then a guy does that for a couple of years and you're like, wait a minute, light bulb let's band our nitrogen on the top dress side. So we did it in 17, phenomenal. Did it in 18. You look at my 2018 fall videos, crop report videos, like how green that corn is going into the fall freeze up, like phenomenal. So we're still running the same nitrogen pounds to the acres we were 15 years ago, but we're producing 20, 30, 50 bushels more on average on the same nitrogen credit. So instead of being 1 plus N credits per bushel, we're now down at 0.7, 0.8 N credits per bushel. And on the no-till corn on corn, we are not adding, we're still at that 0.7, 0.8. We're not adding extra nitrogen when we go from corn following beans or something else to corn following corn. We're running the exact same program, and we're not seeing a big yield penalty for that. So that really shocked us. So now the research is saying that, hey, if we are that dark green leading into fall, we need to start pulling back a little bit on the applied nitrogen. And so that's the next step for this year then, is to start pulling back 5, 10, 15, 20%, do some trials, and see if you pull back just a few percent, does it respond? If you pull back 30%, I would like to believe we're going to see a response, but maybe not. But if you pull back 5 or 10%, maybe you don't see any crop response, but maybe you save 5 or 10% of your money. That's the whole point here. It's just a few pennies at a time can fill the well. And so that's the next plan, is to how can we pull back on nitrogen to be even a little more efficient. Maybe play with nitrogen treatments and things like that, and go from there. But yeah, so it's been kind of a lot of unexpected results, but kind of led us down a path. And the other cool thing is, so most of that ground at the home place hasn't had, at most, is a half rate of recommended P&K. But have yet, after 6 years, we have yet to see a deficiency. The crop is working fine. I have zero faith in a soil analysis. I think it's a tool that we can use, but I don't put much stock in it. Like, if it's ugly, fine, I can manage around it. It's no big deal. I'm not going to go broke trying to make a pretty soil test. And so that's kind of the cool part, is so we haven't seen a deficiency. So this year is the first year since 2015 that we're just going to broadcast a bunch of maintenance P&K. We do hay and small grains, so we'll broadcast some maintenance P&K on them fields, and go from there. And then, like your corn and beans, we'll put the fertility on with the sprayer. And some of them fields, a lot of them fields that we're doing that on came out of hay fields. So we might end up, maybe we'll just broadcast all of it on them fields, just as a maintenance thing, not to feed the crop, but just, I'm not ready yet to just zero out purchase P&K. But at the same time, I know that by blowing on some P&K, I'm not getting a huge crop response. It's just a maintenance thing. And so, yeah, first time in 6 years, well, that really helps the cash flow out. And so, I don't know. Guys, that's our story of where we were and where we're at and where we're going. And let me know. I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are you doing? How are you reducing your inputs? And keep talking below.